So,
What's on your mind?
oh my gosh.
What's wrong?
You just saw what happened here behind the scenes?
Oh yeah, it's crazy over here, guys.
It really is. It really is. And, Will Peterson and I going at it like, emotions are involved and passions involved and I've said this for years, like when you go to break and then you just keep doing sports talk radio.
Keep talking about it.
Through the break. And we have a lot to say. And Will and I see things extremely differently. Okay?
But you know how that is. It's very emotional when you're in a Game 7 and you're winning the game. We're talking about the Colorado Avalanche right now. You're up 2-0 going into the third period, and you find a way to lose it with 12 and a half minutes left in the game. That's a major meltdown.
It is. I'm going to be honest. I do not like the phrase. There's a couple phrases in sports I just don't like. Garbage time is one of them. He's playing in garbage time.
Yeah, I don't like that.
That guy's the best player from his hometown and one of the best players from his colleges, and he's at the pro level and he's playing garbage.
His time. He's getting his reps.
He's getting out there, right? Choking is another one. I just typically don't like.
So if you don't like choking, what would be a different word? Because I'm
meltdown.
okay with choking.
No. In a situation like this,
okay, yeah.
I think that we use the word choking and choke job too liberally. That what happened to the Avs is a choke job. It's a meltdown. It's a catastrophe. And the cloud that is now over this organization, okay, is so real. To deny that it exists is to not have your sight or your hearing. You have got to have your head in the... Guys, this is the first time in the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs, the Major League Baseball playoffs, in any of those three sports where they have 7-game series, this is the first time ever an organization has lost 7 consecutive Game 7s. And we talked about it all through last week, and now we're living in the wake of what happened. And I'm gonna be very, very just real right now.
As you should be. Be real.
Typically, and I love doing this job and I'm passionate about it, I get fired up, but typically, man, I'll sleep like a baby, right? I have a family. I have a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old. This is sports. This is the toy aisle of life.
Yeah.
Okay?
No, it truly is. It's not that serious.
And typically this stuff does not sting me or stay with me or affect me this way. I've been doing this job for 8 years, and there has been tough Bronco losses and the Rockies and the playoffs in 17 and 18. I remember they couldn't produce a hit. I mean, but there has been only 2 times in 8 years of doing this job that I have felt like this. And it was what happened last year to the Denver Nuggets in Game 7 and what happened on Saturday night in Game 7. I will remember this for the rest of my life. And
well, which one's worse, though? Like we all know how we felt last year, Game 7. It was like literally the world was ending. That's how I felt. I was like, you know what? Like, this team seems like they're cooked. Like, they may need some type of change before next year. The change never came, and we're still in it right now, going into round 2, which is fine. With the Avs, how does that make you feel? Because it's like, what more change can you ask for, Zach? Like, the Avs have been changing in and out players the whole entire year. You got 2 new goalies. You added 3 or 4 more key pieces. You end up losing the first round. What's next? You want them to rechange and have different faces in the building again? A different coach? Like, it's just weird. Like, I felt differently. I felt that the world was ending with the Nuggets last year. I don't necessarily feel like the world's ending with the Avs. And maybe it's just because you know that you have Nathan McKinnon coming back. You know that maybe Gabe in a full year where he can go on an off season and get stronger, and then start the first game of the year is different. Maybe because we know Kale did not play his best, and he's one of the best players in the world, that I feel a little bit more confident even next year for this group.
Yeah, for me personally, it's not with the Kale stuff specifically. Yeah. With the Kale stuff specifically, I don't have more confidence moving forward because of how bad he played, and I know he's a different player. Some of that other stuff, for sure. You asked me the question 2 minutes ago, which is worse? It's so crazy how these two organizations are tied together and reflect one another in consecutive years like this. I can't decide. And here's why. Because I was convinced both last year, if they won Game 7, and this weekend, had the Avs won Game 7, that both teams were going to go on to win a championship. You were doing the show with me all through last year.
Yeah.
I was so supremely confident all year, more so than any other opinion that I've had in Denver sports. I was so convinced, one, that the Nuggets were going to win their first championship. That entire year before they won, I was calling it the year before the year. But I was equally as confident that they were going back to back. And the amount of times I said they have the keys and the codes to unlock. And once you realize and understand how to win, like, they have it. And when they lost and that title, opportunity slammed shut, I felt the same way about the Avalanche. I felt if they could win that 60-minute hockey game, they were going to go win the Stanley Cup. And I still believe that. And there's no way of ever proving it, but I don't know how to separate it. I don't.
And maybe I'm putting excuses out there, putting built-in excuses, but the difference with the Nuggets is the Nuggets have been together. The core have won a championship before. With this core, Zach, Marty Netchis, Brock Nelson, Jack Drury, Charlie Coyle, these were all new faces that didn't have a lot of runway. And so what does that look like next year when they're together again, if Brock Nelson comes back? I know that there's a couple other pieces that have to be applied.
Yeah.
If Gabe is better than what he was.
But he was great.
And he was great.
But here's the thing. It's like, dude, Gabe came back and was better than
I know.
Well, think about this. Let's take a step back. Gabe came back after 3 years and was the best version of himself, way better than we ever could anticipate. What if I told you this stuff before the series started? Gabe's going to come back and he's going to be the best version of himself. Nathan McKinnon is going to score the most goals in a single playoff series in the history of the organization. Jason Robertson and Miro Heiskanen, arguably their first and second best players, were not going to come back the whole series.
Oh, we're winning.
We're
winning it all.
Of course. And the fact that they lost and they controlled the game on Saturday like they controlled the series, and they still lost. And and now Bednar 0-4 in Game 7's Pete DeBoer 9-0.
9-0.
And this is the black magic voodoo DeBoer stuff that I referenced all through last week, and unfortunately, and I am not trying to take any victory lap because I wish I'm praying I was wrong, but we got to make our prediction at the end of Friday's show. I'm like, all the history just says this is where they lose. They're 0-5 when getting down 3-2, not 3-0, 3-2. They haven't won a Game 7 since 2002. George W. Bush was the president. And it's crazy because even when all the factors say the Avs are better, screw the history.
The stats showed that the Avs were better.
Yep.
Supposedly. But then you look there and they're lost. They lost in the Game 7. Like, that's what's like, help me find out or realize how we lost this game and how we had a major meltdown when it mattered the most, when we had that much firepower on the ice. Val was healthy. Kale was out there healthy, supposedly. We don't know yet. Maybe we'll get some more news in the presser tomorrow. Nathan McKinnon was playing great. You got Gabe back, and Gabe actually was really, really good. You could ask for more. Why was our power play unit so horrible?
That was, to me, what I will take with me, in addition to Kale being a ghost literally for 7 games. 1 goal, and it came on an empty netter with 2 seconds left from 200 feet away. In addition to Kale totally going MIA, in addition to the Pete DeBoer, Jared Bednar dynamic, the thing that will last for me is special teams. Special teams cost the Colorado Avalanche this series. They went 1 for their last 18 on the power play. And it's just when it's that glaring, and Dallas winds up scoring 7 power play goals. It's just that's the series right there. Stars went 7 for 23, all right, including 2 for 4 in Game 7. But they went 7 for 23, and the Avs went 3 for 22.
That tells you everything you need to know. On top of this, though, Zach, Blackwood, at the end of the last 3 games.
Yep, hard to watch.
Kind of falling on his face.
Totally.
And that hurt you when you had the inexperience. There's where Aldridgen had a different take on it. He had 50-plus times that he's been on the ice in a playoff game. Blackwood, that was his 7th.
Right.
And it showed.
Yep.
It showed.
And earlier in the series, he was much stronger.
He was.
But in the last 3 games, his save percentage is in the low 800s. And the Otters is in, it's like different stratosphere. And that's the story. And I said that's a story. That's a story in addition to the special teams, in addition to Kale being MIA, Val not being the best version of himself. It's I just
our fourth line being the best line, like literally, they were really, really good.
Yep.
The whole entire series.
And it was a good thing, but it was ultimately unhealthy.
Yeah. That's a great way of saying it. It's a great thing, but it's unhealthy when they're playing better than your first and second line throughout the whole entire series. That can't happen.
Yeah.
That can't happen.
No, it can't. It can't, but it did. And now again, the Avs are going home after the first round for the second time in 3 years. They have won one playoff series since the Stanley Cup. This is now 7 of 8 years they are unable to get out of the second round. Phil, when they won the title, when they won the cup, the championship in 2022, we were doing segments about if they only win one cup, would it be a disappointment? That was like the outlook or the forecast for this group. And if you would have told me when Bednar's up there crying at the parade that this group would win one more series through the year 2025, it would have been like
that would be a nightmare. Like you'd be like sitting here saying, no, that can't happen.
Right.
Not with this crew.
Right.
It can't happen with how deep we are. It can't happen because we have the coach to do it. And right now, Zach, I'm just here to say, like, you have people that were so upset that they were just ready to fire Bednar, fire Chris McFarland.
Yeah.
Letting their emotions run so high.
Well, and I get it though. I get it when you're so emotionally invested and you're angry in the moment. But like to take a step back, because I'm hearing a lot of, hey, fire Chris McFarland.
Yeah.
Hey, fire, and the retroactive, I told you so stuff, and which is fine. This is the business that we're in. But like, I heard so many people on this station, and I'll highlight Mike Evans in the morning. Right? I never heard, and I respect the hell out of Mike and his hockey acumen. I never heard Mike so confident. To the point where other members of his show are like, Mike, settle down.
Was so confident that the Avs were going to do
it?
Yeah,
that the Avs were going to beat Dallas.
I was so confident.
They're so much of a better team, and I just don't know how that's your take on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that the Avs can go win the Stanley Cup, the Avs are going to beat Dallas, and then on Monday, it's fire the guy who put that group together. And I know, and again,
hot until you're not, though. That's how sports are.
Of course.
You're happy, and then when you lose a big time game, your emotions take the best of you, and now you want to fire everybody.
Yeah, and I know, Mike was, had taken his little, subliminal shots or direct shots this morning, and this is the day to do that to someone like myself. But I do believe Chris McFarland should be and will be up for the Jim Gregory General Manager of the Year award. Right? When you have so much confidence in saying this team can go win the Stanley Cup, but now on Monday, because the players couldn't cross the finish line and the players weren't mentally tough enough to finish a game with a 2-goal lead.
Keyword you say right there, the players. The players are the ones out there playing now.
I just can't get on board with let's fire the guy who gave me all that optimism for the last 2 weeks. I just can't go there. Did Chris McFarland do an absolutely perfect job? Like perfection? No. Is Jared Bednar a perfect coach?
No.
Like he brings you perfection? No. But I thought it was damn good. And you know who else thought that? The players. Nathan McKinnon saying our management group has put us in a position and now we need to do right by management. Cale Makar after the game. Cale Makar after Game 7 said our management put us in a great position, and we let them down.
Well, you know where they started. When they got rid of Georgiev's ass. When they brought in 2 goalies to say, hey, we are serious about this year. We are serious that we're going to make a couple more moves to help you out, Nate, to help you out, Cale. They did that. Now it's time for Nate and Cale. It was time for them to take advantage of that. Nathan McKinnon did a great job. Cale was MIA. That can't happen if you want to win a cup.
It wasn't good enough from Cale. It wasn't good enough from Marty Netchis. It wasn't good enough from Val. I mean, there's a lot to point to. I want to bring in Will Peterson, who.
Oh, let me get my pocket. Hold on.
I don't know how to actually start this because Will was having went on a Twitter spree after the Avs lost. Okay.
Twitter fingers. They were typing fast.
I pointed out, hey, Avs have won one series since the Stanley Cup, something that Will and I talked about at Edgewater Beer Garden on Friday. Thank you again for filling in.
Oh, it was fun.
Yeah, appreciate that, Will.
Yeah. It was fun. And then it's I get the, hey, how did your boy Netchus do? All right, and then we're relitigating the Mikko.
3 minutes after the game, though.
Yes, it was. It
3
was
minutes
quick.
after the game, Will.
It was quick. I was not ready for that jab, or haymaker, depends who you ask. Will, it felt like, and I said it, and you weren't around. I should have said it when you were here. Okay, so I want to apologize for that, but it felt like that you were happy to be right about the Mikko take, even if it meant the Avs lost. And I said that at the top of the show because you were here waiting for me, running me down as I walked into the studio. Literally.
Running you down.
Literally, you ran me down.
He was late. He was late, Will, because you held him hostage.
We should be a reality show because if people could have seen that converation, that would have.
Go ahead and summarize it. Go ahead.
There's some language I can't use on the radio. Let's put it that way.
I said, it's a hot conversation, and we're all passionate about this stuff when we're doing sports talk radio off the air. So go ahead. I want to give you the floor, give some space here too to sort of defend yourself here.
I mean, defend myself isn't hard. Mikko Rantanen had 8 points in Game 6 and Game 7. He made all kinds of history in that third period in Game 7. You can go read about it at denversports.com. I mean, to score a hat trick on his former team to end their season,
it's all-timer.
Could win the Stanley
Cup.
Make
that
up. It's arguably the greatest payback game in the history of sports.
And so, therefore, when I hated the trade on January 24th, and you guys both know I was on the record, I hated the trade that day.
You weren't the only one.
I wasn't the only one, but therefore, when they rip my heart out and stomp all over it, I feel like I'm allowed to have an emotional reaction and say, hey, I was right. Treating Mikko Rantanen was a massive mistake. And here's the thing, and I told you guys this all along, it was the 6 weeks thing. Because if you trade him to Carolina on March 4th, guess who he plays for?
Carolina.
The Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah.
By doing it 6 weeks early, you gave other teams a chance to get in the fold if something went wrong.
But
something
also
did
no
go
one,
wrong, and now he plays for the Dallas Stars.
Yeah, but to anticipate that as like you thought that could be a factor is like, Will, I've heard a lot of you on the subject. No one, literally no one was saying, well, man, with 6 months, man, he could come back to the West. We didn't think he was going to get traded again.
No, but Zach, what was the problem with Mikko? He was always stubborn, right? Had his number in mind.
Sure.
If he was going to be stubborn with the Avs, didn't you realize that was a risk? He was going to go be stubborn with the Hurricanes?
But their problem is, that's not our problem anymore. Nobody thought he was coming back to the Dallas Stars.
It is our problem because you gave 6 weeks for Carolina for something to go wrong. You messed up by trading him when you did. You took your ball and went home on a Friday night in Boston because you had some bad conversations. What is Mikko on the record saying? I thought we had more time. I wanted to be an Avalanche for life. Phil, you played in the NFL. If you were in a contract negotiation and you and your agent thought you had 6 weeks to figure it out, you'd probably think 6 weeks is a heck of a long time.
It is a long time.
Chris McFarland blindsided Mikko Rantanen, and Mikko Rantanen got the last laugh. And I think what I'm hearing from the two of you is no one should have to have consequences for that. To me, the consequences are pretty simple. The GM of the team should be dismissed.
No, I think you're oversimplifying it, and I disagree because you yourself picked the Avs to win the series in 6. Mm-hmm. You also have been on the record saying this team can go win the Stanley Cup as recent as Friday, saying this team can go win the Stanley Cup. So we all also acknowledge that this team was the deepest it had been since 2022. Bednar talked about that after the game as well. So the team that on Friday you said can go win the Stanley Cup, you want the guy fired who constructed that team. And also the other...
When they come up woefully short, yes. And if it had been Tyler Seguin, if it had been Jamie Benn, I probably wouldn't have had that take. It was Mikko Rantanen who wanted to be an Av for life.
And here's the thing.
You blindsided.
No, but here's the factor that you're leaving out, and you've always left out, Will, is that you analyze Chris McFarland in a vacuum and don't act like he has a hockey boss. His hockey boss is Joe Sakic. Joe Sakic, that trade, it's one of the biggest trades. It's arguably the biggest trade in the history of the Avalanche, second at the worst, right?
Yeah.
Or at the lowest, I guess. And so for a trade of that magnitude, Joe Sakic is also very much a part of that decision. And if you think Chris McFarland and Joe Sakic disagreed on it and they went with McFarland, I think you're living on a different planet. I think Joe Sakic is as much responsible for the Mikko Rantanen trade, even more so than Chris McFarland, because it is such an important trade. And if Joe Sakic wasn't involved in a top 2 biggest trade in Avalanche history, Why have him as the team president? So if you want to fire Chris McFarland, to me, it's almost ipso facto. The guy who made that decision should get fired, and that should be Joe Sakic.
Joe Sakic would have said, Joe Sakic would have got rid of him right after the game if Joe Sakic didn't agree with what Chris McFarland did during the regular season.
Oh, that's a great point.
He would have got rid of him because he would have been like, you know what?
You idiot. Look what you did.
Exactly. Look what just happened.
They are two totally different human beings. Joe Sakic has 3 championships in this town. Joe Sakic is a legend in this town.
No kidding, Will.
Chris McFarland is not.
We're talking about the here and now and the utilitarian function of a team president and a general manager, not that what's on their Wikipedia page. There is no way that trade went down without Joe Sakic's blessing. So in my mind, the way that I hear it,
it's a hierarchy.
If you want McFarland fired, you actually want Sakic fired. And it's such a great point that Phillip Lindsay just made.
For life.
It's such a great
Joe.
I know you do. It's so conveniently that you want to separate him from a very obvious situation. The way that you just lost is the most gutting loss in the history of the Avalanche. That guy that you traded is the one who just did it to you. So if you weren't responsible for it, and the guy under you is, he's right. Chris McFarland is fired today, but he's not, because it's not in a vacuum. Your team president was involved in the largest trade in the history of the Avs.
There's so many things we don't know, Zach, though. You're making these blanket statements. What if ownership said, hey, guys, we already have to hire a new GM and a new head coach on our basketball side. We're not going to make any changes on the hockey side. We don't want to have to do 4 people.
And that's not a wild assumption that you just made? That's not a wild assumption that you just made, that because they're busy with the Nuggets, they wouldn't do something with the Avs? That sounds insane.
I mean, again, you must have sources over at the Avs that I simply don't. I'm just throwing out a theory, spitball, and you're telling me it's absolutely black and white. Joe Sakic was actually the evil villain who traded Mikko Rantanen.
I didn't say evil villain.
No, Chris McFarland.
Dude, you are in a pretzel the way that you're twisting this.
How?
You really are. Your team, if your team president wasn't involved in the largest trade of this iteration with the Avs, and maybe in the history of the organization, what do you think Joe does? Let's talk about that, actually. If you don't think Joe Sakic was involved with that trade, what do you think Joe Sakic does?
I think he's a sounding board. He's there if Chris needs him, right?
And you don't think Chris needed him? And if there's ever going to be a sounding board, wouldn't it be one of the largest trades in the history of the org?
Because they're talking to each other. They're trying to figure out, should they do it, should they not? Joe Sakic is very much so involved in that trade. You know that.
When Joe got promoted, it was so he didn't have to do the day-to-day stuff of the GM. Chris probably called him, said, I'm thinking about trading Mikko. What do you think? And Joe is such a mild-mannered guy. You know what he probably said? Chris, if you like the deal, you have my blessing. But I don't think Joe Sakic was behind this trade or in the war room with Chris or on all the phone calls with Carolina. I think you're right. Chris probably asked Joe to sign off on it. Joe said, Chris, you're the GM. I trust you to do your job. Go for it. You guys are acting like Joe Sakic is in there day in and day out managing this team, and I just don't think he is.
I'm not saying, no. First of all, I wasn't acting like he was in there on a day-to-day, because if he's not in there on the day-to-day, and let's just say you're right, if there was ever a window of time that you would get increasingly involved, it would be one of the largest trades in the history of the franchise. So if you're telling me if Sakic wasn't involved in this, Sakic is Elway in 2021. Well, he's just coming in at 11 and he's leaving at 12.
Okay, because now guess what? Now Josh Kroenke, who's going to talk to? He's going to probably talk to Sakic and say, what just happened? Who's going to get in trouble? Probably Sakic if that was the case.
Well, it looks like no one's going to get in trouble because they're having a press conference tomorrow, right? You don't let guys talk that you're moving on from, so Joe will be back. Great. I'm happy about that. Chris will be back.
Because when you take a step back.
Are you going to be at that presser tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Okay. Are you going to ask Joe Sakic about the order of operations in the Mikko Rantanen trade? The guy that just ended your season. Are you going to ask him about, hey, Joe, how involved were you in this process?
Sure, either I will or someone else will, because it's an extremely logical question.
It is.
How difficult is it for you to swallow that you guys traded a top 10 player in franchise history and he ended your season 3 months later?
Yeah, he made you pay at the end there.
That's a fair question.
Yeah.
That really is. That's not a look at me. That's not a gotcha question. That is the question that it's one of the 3 or 4 questions that need to be asked.
I totally agree, and it will get asked tomorrow. But here's what bums me out about all this. Is I had an emotional reaction, much like a lot of people did. And Arif Dean, who covers that team super closely, what did he write yesterday? Chris McFarland should pay for the Mikko Rantanen trade with his job. Colleen Flynn, who covers the Avalanche every day, I see her at every game. She tweets me on Saturday night, I agree with you, Will. Chris McFarland should be fired. Sean Keeler writes Jared Bednar should be fired. Mark Kislett should
like people were just waiting, though. It sounds like people have been waiting for this opportunity.
But I think what you two are doing is trying to pin me on the island. Like I had this crazy take.
Wait, hold on a second.
I wasn't the only person who thought this or thinks this.
I didn't say that. Do any of those people work here? No. Have I had any of those conversations with any of those people? No. Was any of those people tweeting me, hey, how'd your boy Netches do after 3 minutes after the clock went to 0? No. So I am talking to you and not them.
Okay, so you're very upset that you got it wrong about the Mikko
No,
trade.
I'm
It's
upset
not
that the
about being
Avs
wrong.
lost. I'm upset that the Avs lost. You seem gleeful that you got to be right in
See,
the
that's
Avs.
not true. That's not true.
That's how it seemed. You are a tree. I will judge you by your fruit. I don't know your roots underneath the soil. I see the fruit that comes out up top, and it seemed like you were excited that the Avs lost, and it got to be
wasn't
Mikko
excited.
that make them pay.
Nah, it's just an incorrect take. It's an emotional moment. People cope in different ways. And in that moment, Mikko Rantanen had 12 points. Marty Necas had 5. And oh, by the way, the throw-in in the trade, Jack Drury committed the
penalty.
penalty
Yeah,
when
the
it was
penalty.
2-2. Like, this trade aged like milk. Can
Well,
you
you
guys
said-
at least agree with me on that?
Right now, hell yeah. Are you
Okay.
kidding me?
Thank you.
At the end
but
there,
that's
yeah.
why I
But
tweeted
also-
you.
but
Like, you're so
also-
upset about a tweet. I don't get it,
Well,
man.
because-
it's Twitter. It's not real life.
No kidding. But you paint yourself in a certain way that you're now trying to defend against.
No, because the leap in logic from, hey, they messed up the Mikko trade to I'm happy the Avalanche are out. I'm a massive Avalanche fan. Zach, I'd love nothing more than to be covering the game against the Winnipeg Jets on Wednesday night. I don't get to do that. This town doesn't get to watch the Avs any longer. We have to wait 13 months before they can win another title. And your conclusion from that is I'm happy?
That's what it felt like, Will.
Well, you misread the situation then, my friend.
If I read your tweets verbatim, will it feel like that?
You've read it 7 times. How's your boy Necas
No,
do?
I'm talking about your
No,
spree. I'm talking about your spree.
I
just
said
meant-
Chris McFarland should pay for this with his job. Yes.
It's like fire Chris McFarland right now, right? In all caps?
I think tonight was the word I used.
Okay. So, yeah, we just see it differently. We just see it differently.
Okay, so I'm supposed to sit here and apologize for being an
No,
emotional
you don't have to
Avalanche fan.
apologize.
No,
Stand on
no,
business.
no.
Hey, stand on
Not at
whatever you believe in. Stand on it.
But then how does me wanting the GM fired make it seem like I'm happy the Avs lost? The Avs are my favorite team.
Will, for 3 months, you have been railing on this, and you got validated.
And I was correct.
For right now.
You're
For right
happy
now.
about that.
Has Mikko signed a 7-year deal?
Is it 7 or 8 with Dallas? Yeah.
And it kicks in,
Next year, I believe.
right, so his new contract hasn't started yet. Right now, it couldn't have aged worse. It couldn't have aged worse. But we're just getting started on this thing. So we'll see where it goes over the next literally better part of a decade. All right. So there's still time on the clock with this puppy. But for right now, this is the worst thing that's ever happened in the Avalanche.
but you
this
don't-
is awful.
Yeah.
It sucks. I mean, it's aged
And,
terribly
yeah,
right
you
now.
have Mikko that goes for a hat trick. Like, you can't make this
You
up.
can't make it feels like a Hollywood
Yeah,
script.
it-
Phil.
no,
It
literally.
does that they would actually throw out and say it's too unrealistic. The first ever third period hat trick, a self-contained hat trick within a period
A major
in a game 7.
major meltdown where you're winning 2-0 and you find a way to lose it. Like, you can't make it up.
So therefore, I was emotional and angry and upset. I don't know how Zach arrives at happy. Because anger and upset are opposite of happy, my guy.
Will, you found me at the door on my way into work. Like you were waiting for me to get here and
I was
throw it in
walking
my
to a
face.
meeting and
No,
said-
you weren't. You were walking away from your meeting towards the studio.
Because I heard your voice.
Okay, and you ran me down.
I didn't
right?
run
James was
you
like,
ran, you ran,
James was
you
looking
ran
for
me down.
James,
You ran
James
me
is quiet,
down.
but James was looking for Zach too.
With great glee. No, he heard my voice talking to James. That's how he.
That's why I said we need cameras in here because
All right.
this was a fun 15 minutes, but you know what? That would have been some fun content. to
There's
have
no
out
doubt.
there.
And then we'll talk to you again tomorrow reacting to the press
Yeah,
conference,
I'm
right?
fascinated by the press conference because, again, Sakic's not getting fired, McFarland's not getting fired. You don't let guys talk who you're going to fire. And I would think, real quick, if you were going to dismiss Bednar, you don't announce a presser before you dismiss him. I think Jared Bednar's probably safe, too. We'll find out for sure tomorrow.
And that's actually something we can leave this
Yeah.
conversation agreeing on. It's the drive on the fan.